The story of Gene Hackman and what happened the last 7 days of his life have fascinated many people, but the story goes deeper than that and illustrates some of the issues that we have in the United States in dealing with populations as they cognitively decline. You probably remember Gene Hackman and have even wondered what has happened to him. Turns out in 2004 he retired from the filmmaking industry because his heart was bad and he didn't think he could sustain what it needed to take care of that as a career. So instead, he and his wife moved to Santa Fe. He wanted to avoid the paparazzi and begin the second half of his life, doing things he enjoyed, which didn't include making film. He started writing and his wife would do his editing for him. He played golf with his friends, took an interest in a restaurant, loved his dogs and walking his dogs, and was considered a valuable member of the Santa Fe community. And in 2020, as with many of us, he cloistered in-house because of the COVID pandemic. But there was another reason he did that. Gene Hackman had developed Alzheimer's disease, and it was becoming advanced. So his wife was protecting him. They were seen out very little after 2020 because it's just very hard to take someone who has Alzheimer's out. The last time they were seen in public was a couple of years ago. What continued to occur happens to a lot of people. As his Alzheimer's progressed, he needed more and more care from his wife. And even though she was 30 years younger than him, taking care of someone 24 hours a day, which is what it means with a patient with advanced Alzheimer's, is exceedingly difficult and taxing on a person. Remember, she was 65 years old. What we know about the last couple of weeks of his life is that she had developed hantavirus syndrome. And 1 in 3 people develop a lung pneumonia from that and actually die. And she was no doubt run down by taking care of him, and that may have contributed to it. She died on the bathroom floor, probably thinking she just had the flu because during that time flu was everywhere and that she would get over it. And instead of taking care of herself, was taking care of him and putting her efforts toward him. His Alzheimer's was so advanced at the time of his diagnosis and autopsy that he probably didn't even recognize that she had died. He didn't even know enough to take the dog out of the crate and feed and walk and water the dog that had come home from the hospital. He didn't have any food in his stomach on autopsy. He had gotten a little bit of water so he wasn't too dehydrated, but that heart that had caused him to retire many years before had its last beat at the end of February. He died several days after she did, and their mummified remains were there in the house to be found by maintenance workers who took care of the property in that subdivision. This illustrates what happens to a lot of families. Caregivers start at home. You notice your partner is slipping. You have to take care of more things for them. My father had this happen with my mother. He was in his 80s and he used to walk 3.5 miles a day. But when she started wandering off the property, he stopped taking care of his walk, stopped taking care of himself, and both of them ended up needing to have more assistance, which they rejected at first, much like she probably did. This is a problem we have with cognitive decline in America. People don't have the resources often to bring in other people. They certainly did, but it's something that's a hard decision to make. And it's an even harder decision to make to put people into a memory care where they can get the 24-hour care that they need, which will help them even more than a single person can do. We have an aging population in our country with more of the people living long enough that they're going to get cognitive decline and need more health care and probably don't have the financial resources. Which is a shame because we're the richest nation in the world, and yet a country like Norway takes care of their elderly and their Alzheimer's typically in-house with trained nurses and trained technicians who keep people and let them have the dignity of their life at the end as they should. We don't do this in the United States. People who have to do that can either afford it or they're going to go broke because they can't take care of it. So they're forced to take care of their family members on their own. And typically, even if you have a lot of money, the end result is like this. The people who are the caretakers wear out, they develop no social life, slowly they spend more and more of their hours taking care of their loved one, not even wanting to get help in. This is a problem that we need to address in this country. And while AI will help us with further monitoring and helping with assistance, we also need one other thing that we're losing. We need more NIH grants to study Alzheimer's and cognitive decline and the 5 other forms of mental dementia, because if we don't have that, we are coming with an epidemic of people who will not have any way to take care of themselves or any people left to take care of them. And that will be an immense national tragedy, which we can head off now by bringing in more research dollars to try and cure these horrible diseases once and for all. So Hackman had a beautiful career and a beautiful second half, and an unfortunate death. And his unfortunate death should give us pause on the priorities we need to have as a nation.